Welcome to another Unreal Foos tutorial. Today I want to talk about 5R defense. So what are some of the goals when we're playing 5R defense? The most obvious one is to prevent the offensive 5-bar from passing the ball to their offensive 3-bar, okay? So if you are able to block the pass and steal it so that you gain possession on your 5, then that's great. Then that gives you a possession and you're able to then go and do your own passing series. However, that's not always the case. But you know, there are different scenarios that can happen when you're playing 5R defense, and so I want to talk about all of them briefly so that you're aware of the different situations that can happen. So again, blocking the pass is the one thing. You can also you also need to be aware of when somebody goes into a passing series that they have the option to shoot from the 5-bar. So you always have to be aware of any shots, and also try to prevent shots that go down the middle or at angles, whatever the offensive player is maybe thinking of doing or trying to do. And this is one of the reasons why experience helps a lot, because if you know the player, then you can anticipate some of those moves. But you always have to be conscious of the fact that somebody has the ability to pass and also shoot. So as you're playing 5R defense, not only are you trying to block passes, you're also trying to block shots. If you are able to block the pass, you can, one of the things that can happen is you can block it and it can go back to the offensive 5R. Sometimes when you're playing 5R defense, you might have to change the way you're blocking in order to try to minimize the times that you block a pass and have the ball go back to the offensive 5-bar, because giving the offensive player a second opportunity to pass makes it easier on them, and it puts you at a little bit of a disadvantage. But so sometimes you might have to make that adjustment. If somebody's rushing at a certain angle and you're up and it goes there, maybe you might have to move your guy a little bit down. And so hopefully you can gain possession of it, or sometimes you might have to flick the ball or the man a little bit quicker in order for you to be able to cause the ball to move out of their possession, or for you to maybe hit the ball back. So again, so another one of the options or things that can happen is that as you're blocking a pass, you might be able to block it into their own goal. So that's usually one of the best things that can happen when playing good 5R defense, is that you block, you can stuff the ball back into their own goal. It doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it's definitely one of those things that is sort of demoralizing for the offensive player, and it can give you a boost as a defensive player. The other thing is that when somebody's passing, you may get a piece of the ball. So if the ball's going on an angle, you may be able to react so that you deflect the ball and you don't allow the offensive player to catch the ball. That's another very good positive outcome that can happen, and you should also consider that successful when you're playing 5R defense. It's not always about stealing the pass. It's just preventing the offensive player from keeping possession of the ball. Another important thing to understand about defense is that at any one time when you're trying to block a pass, is you really want to be positioning your guys in a way that you're going to give yourself the opportunity to block at least one of the options that the offensive player has. So what that means is that if somebody's going into a passing series, first thing to understand is that the offensive player most of the time will either try to pass through the lane or the wall, right? I'm going to concentrate on the lane and the wall because when you talk about tournament foosball, professional foosball, most passes are going to go, the majority of the passes are going to go in this area. And this is for somebody doing a near wall series. If they're doing a far wall series, it's the same thing. The passes are going to be concentrated here. They're going to be going through the lane or the wall. So what you want to do then is there's a concept or a term that people use that says, don't get caught up in no man's land. And so what that means, no man's land is when you're playing defense, and at the moment that somebody goes for the pass, you basically get hung up where you basically didn't cover anything. You didn't give yourself the opportunity to block at least one of the options that the offensive player has. And most of the time that means that you were caught up, right in the middle here, rather than, getting yourself caught up on the wall here, even if they go lane, or getting yourself caught up on the lane right here, and somebody went to the wall. Typically you want to pick one spot or the other, or if you're playing more of a fast or random defense, at the time, your movement should be going very fast from the wall to the lane, but you want to go to the position on the lane where it's going to block the pass. So if I'm moving here and somebody does a pass and I find myself right there that I basically froze at this spot, then somebody has the ability to do a lane pass there, so I didn't block anything. Or if they decided to go to the wall, then I didn't block that either. So it's much better for you to be able to pick one spot. So even if they went to the lane and you left a really big lane, that's better than getting hung up right here, because you never had a shot here. If you were on the wall, then that means that if the offensive player had gone to the wall, you would have stolen the pass. So again, try not to ever get hung up in a spot that doesn't give you the chance to block anything. So always tell yourself, if I'm playing defense, you're gonna move from one spot to the other. And so it's always good to understand and know, the player, because then you're gonna know what their passing angles are. If they typically pass, they let the ball move a little bit closer to the wall, and they don't do very deep passes or lanes, then that's the area that you want to concentrate. If somebody does a lane pass and it always goes at this spot, then there's no reason for you to be covering this area, right? So and so getting caught up in no man's land again is this, or maybe going out too far, where if I'm over here, if I'm trying to block lanes and I overrun the lane and somebody still does a lane, why was I all the way over here? I wasn't blocking anything over here, right? Or somebody does a lane there or a wall, I'm not blocking anything, so I didn't give myself a chance to block anything. So don't overrun it this way. Don't get hung up in the middle. Pick a spot where it's either where you're blocking the lane or you're blocking the wall, right? And that'll give you the best chances of actually blocking a pass. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the positioning of the guy and when you're playing defense. I typically prefer to play defense, 5R defense, where when I go to the wall, I bring the guy back a little bit, not too much. You don't want to have your guy up a lot and basically allow a ball to go right through there, which is actually a mistake that I see people do sometimes, where they'll be on the wall but they have their guy up a little too much, and the ball and a really hard wall pass will kind of squeeze through there. But when I play defense, I typically like to do this type of movement. Aside from maybe doing a fast shuffle with the guy up, when I feel that somebody's doing a wall pass, I go down and I rotate the guy back. And when I'm trying to block lanes, I keep the guy up and I'm swinging a little bit, unless I'm just shuffling the guy here. But what to me, some of the advantages of doing this is that if you have the guy up forward in front of you, when you go guard the wall, you may actually, when somebody does a fast wall pass, it may actually hit and come back at you. Or even if they do a brush pass, it's going to hit your guy and hit the front of it and go back to the offensive 5. I mean, sometimes you might be able to have the ball squeak through and go to your 3. So you might want to experiment with that. But for me, I typically like to when I feel that they're gonna do a brush down, I bring the guy back a little bit so that I can steal the ball and be able to get it and gain possession of it. And then when it goes lane, I go up like that. I go up and try to block it that way. One of the reasons is that especially for brush passes, if it's going at an angle, if the ball's going to go at an angle here, if you have the guy up, it may cut off a little bit of that angle, as opposed to the guy maybe being back here and letting the ball go right through there. So if you go here, that cuts off the angle here. If you're back, it doesn't. And so I typically like to do that. Also, it's faster for me to do this. It's almost, like a pull, where you're pulling the rod, and it's easier for me to pull and rotate than just to try to pull. But again, it's that rotation. It's almost like you're winding up for a shot. So if you're able to block the ball, you might be able to just stuff the ball back into your opponent's goal. So that's the typical movement that I like to do. And so you can practice that. You can try to experiment with different positioning, like whether you want to be straight up and down and then raise walls like that, or lanes. It's up to you. You can try to see how what ends up happening in those situations. If you block it here, whether you gain more possession of it, or whether you have it here, whether you're swinging. At some other times I have been, if I know, for example, that somebody, when I can get a good read that somebody's going to do a lane pass, I will tilt my guys back, because I know I'm going to be able to catch it a lot easier that way, like that. But when I don't know an opponent and I'm just trying to get a feel for their 5-aught, I'm typically playing this. But once I get a good read and they go to the 5-aught, I do this, because this will make it easier to catch, because as the ball goes at that angle, it's basically hitting the back of your guy like this, so you're almost basically catching the ball here. Or even if it bounces a little bit, you'll have time to react and stop the ball. Where if it's right here, you're most likely not going to be able to catch the pass there. You're just going to be able to hit it either back to the 5-aught, or to your own 3, or maybe just hit it back to your opponent's goalie area. So again, it all depends on the situation. If you're able to get good reads, then you definitely can change your defense in that situation. Another technique that I use to play better 5-aught defense is to try to see if the offensive player has any tells, or if they have any patterns of passing. So it's typically good to scout matches before you're going to play somebody, or if it's somebody that you play locally, it's good to understand what are some of their habits, what are some of their strengths and weaknesses, and to try to focus in on those. So if I know that somebody has a really good fast wall pass, but their lane is not as good, typically you want to try to force somebody to execute their weaker options. If you're able to tell a certain pattern or a tell when the offensive player is going to pass, whether it's a lane pass or a wall pass, then you typically want to try to play a defense where you show him that option and then take it away. So if I know that, for example, if somebody has a tell where every time that they go bounce off the wall, they put a fake and then they go to the lane like that, then I want to be aware of that. I want to be aware of the fact that if somebody goes to the lane, I'm gonna wait and then go take that lane away, and I'm gonna steal it. So what I typically see from beginners and amateurs and people that don't have a whole lot of experience is that they don't pay attention to the history of passes, or they don't look for patterns or tells. And the fact is that, especially at that level, most people have them. because they're just trying to figure out, the game and how to do a passing series. They're worried about execution of the pass, that they don't pay attention to the fact that they're actually that there's tells there that somebody who's picking up on that information will easily be able to tell whether they're going to do a lane or a wall pass. So be very conscious of the fact that if you're able to pick up a tell, it's gonna be a great advantage to you. The other thing that's also very important is to really tell yourself or to remind yourself of the progression of passes that has occurred through a match or a game, because those passing patterns will typically continue, and it'll help you for the next time that you play up the same player, or whether you're playing a 3 out of 5 and you lost the first game and the person did 80% wall passes and only 20% lane passes. Then if somebody's having that a really good success passing on one hole, most likely they're going to continue trying to exploit that hole. So as a defender, you want to make sure that you don't get caught up in situations where somebody is either faking you out of holes and they keep going to the same one. Sometimes you just have to pick a spot and just stay there and let them pass on the other one, just to force them to do something else. Another thing to pay attention to when you're trying to defend a 5-bar is whether the offensive player is passing at your guys or at the open hole. A lot of the times people will take a strategy where they'll pass where your guy is, because they know that you have that the defender has a tendency to move. So if somebody is moving, and at the time that you're gonna go do a pass, if you're on the lane and they go lane and you bail out and you go to wall, then they're gonna continue doing that. If they see that you're mainly on the wall, they're gonna pass wall because you're gonna move out of the way. So it's good to understand whether they're doing that or whether they're looking at the open hole. If they see you here and they see that you're kind of being greedy with the wall, and they put a fake and they go to the lane, then that's a good piece of information to understand. So always pay attention again to patterns, to whether somebody is passing mostly on the lane or mostly on the wall, or whether they're changing it up or mixing it up evenly, with going wall and lane at a close amount of the same amount of times. But also try to look and see whether the offensive player is timing holes or looking at the open hole, or whether they're passing at your guy because you're bailing out. And when you do that, then again, you can always change your strategy. And if you were doing it one way, next time, if they see you there, don't bail out and just stay there. If they're passing at your guy, you should be able to steal it next time. Or if they were passing at the open hole, you can show them an open hole and then try to go block that open hole. So I won't get too much into that. In another tutorial, I will explain in more detail how to apply a bait defense, a race defense, or a random, which is some of the general defensive concepts that I talked about in a different tutorial, which I'll put a link, and you can go and check that one out. But a lot of these defensive techniques apply all across the table, whether you're playing 5-bar defense or goalie defense or defensive zones. Okay, thanks a lot, and send me any comments if there's anything else that you'd like to see. This is a very hard topic to explain, just because there's so much information, and again, the skill level matters in this situation, because trying to explain defense to a person who has experience playing, it's a lot easier than trying to explain defense to somebody who's just picking up the game. So send me your opinions and your comments, and then I can do follow-up tutorials based on those comments. Thank you.